Should filmmakers go to film markets?
I think they should. I think if they can afford to go to a film market that's near them or go to one of the major festivals that have a film market like Berlin or Cannes or the American Film Market or MIPCOM on the TV side, it's really eye-opening. There's a lot of great information there, especially if you go to ones that have conferences where they have panels and seminars where you can go listen to people tell their stories and really give case studies. I think it's really invaluable information. I usually tell filmmakers, if you're going to, say, the American film market and you're going to get a badge, and you want to talk to some of the companies that are selling, like go at the end of the market, because the beginning of the market, they're really focused on meeting with their buyers and trying to lock down deals for the content that they're representing. But if you go on the last day or maybe the second to last day, they usually are more open to speaking with filmmakers, and you can at least get an introduction and get some cards and some contacts of people that you can follow up with. And then once the film market is finished, you can follow up and ask them specific questions about your project and get their opinions on your package and what you're planning to do with your film. I think it's invaluable.
Great. Are there any don'ts for going to a film market?
Yeah, I mean, trying to talk to, the sales companies early in the market is tough because they're busy. You're not going to just walk into a suite in Berlin and talk to the top salesperson on the opening day of a film market, because their schedules are packed. They're meeting with buyers every 15 minutes or 30 minutes, just all day long, and they're there to sell. So they don't really want to talk to filmmakers, at that point. But so you have to respect their time and know that they're there to do other things. You can pop in and just say, oh, do you have a card of an acquisitions person or someone I could talk to? And that can usually be your first, entry point to some of those companies. And then you can, email them and tell them you're thinking of making a film. And I think, most distributors and, sales companies are open to talking to filmmakers early in their process, because they think they give you a little bit of information. Maybe you'll come back to them when you make it or when you're getting close to it. But I think, it's just respecting the time of them at the markets. And, a lot of people will hang out in the lobbies, of these and don't get a pass. I think it's, if you can afford to get a pass, it's much more professional to show up and have maybe a little information about yourself, and then just be able to go, suite to suite and talk to the companies and at least get their acquisitions person's name, maybe a quick hello if it's late in the market, and do that. I think you get the most out of it that way.
Is there an actual path from film festival screenings to distribution? Or is that window kind of passed?
Well, film festivals, yeah. I mean, there's still a few discovery festivals that work. I mean, Sundance, Toronto, Cannes, still Berlin, but there are, there are less and less, it feels like, films getting picked up out of those markets. And even at Sundance, I think the drop-off was pretty extreme, in terms of the films that went there without distribution and came out with distribution. It was just a handful of titles, this year. And I think, a lot of those deals are kind of worked on ahead of time too and announced at the festival. But, I think the selling season is year round now. I don't think, everyone waits. If you have a really good film, you might want to screen it ahead of the festivals to some of the buyers, because at the festivals they're scattered and they have their teams going all over. So they might have 5 people watching different films, whereas you might be able to get all 5 of them to watch it ahead of the festival if it's highly anticipated. But there's no hard and fast rule. It's great. I mean, festivals are the best place if you can get all the buyers from all the different companies in one room watching your film at the same time, and it performs really well. The audience loves it, and it's a very marketable commercial film. It's the best possible selling atmosphere, because then you can get a bidding war and everyone has seen the potential of it with an audience. So that's why those festivals are still at a premium for filmmakers. But at the same time, there's only a few where you can actually get that kind of experience set up. And so I think festivals in general are less and less important in terms of selling your film into distribution.
Can you paint a picture of what really happens at a film market? Let's suppose you buy a badge and you go maybe toward the latter end of the market when they're not busy. What are some of the potentials that can happen for someone?
Well, first I'll say it helps if you can go with someone who knows the landscape and knows people there, a rep or a consultant or another producer that knows a lot of people. That'll help you navigate. But what you're basically doing is first of all, you're gathering intelligence, just being in the environment, talking to other people that are at the market. You're finding out what's selling, what's not selling, how people are doing. you have the daily trade papers that are being published with all the latest deals and information. So you're really learning a lot in that time. And then when you actually get your badge and you're going, booth to booth to meet with the companies, you're getting a feel for each company. You're getting to look at their suite. You're getting to see what types of films that they're presenting, and what level, because some companies only deal with really major stars and big movies, and other ones have smaller ones that might be more along the lines of what you're trying to make. So you get a great feeling for that, and then hopefully you get to talk personally with each person, get a feel and a vibe check with the people that you might be working with, and see how friendly they are and what their demeanor is, and see if it's someone you want to work with. So ideally you'd come out of there with some great first impressions of companies, some great information backed up, and then you really just get an understanding of how it works, because you see the buyers around too, and you might run into some buyers from a particular territory in a lobby and talk to them. Oh, you're buying for Japan, like what's working for you? And you get information, and so you build up that knowledge over the course of time that you're at these markets, and you start to get a really good picture of how international work, what the distributors are doing, and what's working territory by territory, and just how the whole process works, and how it feels like a swap meet the first time you walk in, and there's just hundreds of movies there. And when I used to sell, I used to go into a market and I'd say, how am I going to sell one movie? Look at all these movies here. How am I going to make one deal? But you do. The buyers are just there. They're specifically, you have all your relationships, and the buyers come to see each of these companies, and they usually are repeat customers, and so they're like, what do you have new? And they buy the latest films from them, and everybody has their kind of key buyers around that. But it's a really interesting way, if you haven't seen it, to go to at least one, so you kind of know what's happening in that world.
Do you have any personal favorite stories from the film market that you'd like to share?
Let me think here for a second. Well, I think a lot of my best memories from the film market was when I was doing acquisitions. And when you go to a film festival or a market where you're really looking to pick up films, it's pretty chaotic, because you have a list of films that you want to see. There are probably, at a big festival, there might be 20 films that you're trying to cover over 5 days. So you're going to 4 or 5 screenings a day. You're running around, and you're pushing in to try to get in line to get through and make sure you see the films that everyone's trying to see. You see your competition, you see all these other people, and some of the fun things I remember is like, when the snow would hit in Sundance and everybody's on the shuttle buses crammed in, and you might be crammed in with a producer who's done $1 billion at the box office next to a journalist, or some starting out, some actress or somebody, and it was like this melting pot of just people all with a love of films, and it was a really fun community. So those are the experiences that I remember the most, some of the fun times that you'd have, and sitting at the Denny's in Park City at 2 in the morning, and seeing some major celebrities or filmmakers come in and do that, because it was the only place open at that time. So it was all those fun kind of memories. But in terms of the deals, it was always chasing down the reps that had the films, or if I was selling something at a festival, following up with all the buyers, trying to make sure that they knew we were getting other offers, so that if they were interested, they better make a play. It's just a little bit of a cat and mouse game with the buyers and the sellers.
So kind of this interesting look at how the film industry actually works, not from the aspect of the red carpet, but just the sort of, in the trenches, like almost like a trading pit.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting, everybody knows each other, once you've been around for a while, like all the buyers know each other, all the sellers know each other. You have people, your nemesis, that you're trying to compete against. You have other, people, friends, and then you have a lot of people that you share information with. So, they're not competing, so you'll say, oh yeah, you should go look at this film. So you're getting a lot of like inside information, hey, I heard, this one's hot, you should go check out this film, or whatever. So that was fun, being in the trenches at the film festivals and markets was always a great time. It's about, educating yourself, and education, in this world can be free. You've got a great podcast, they should listen to all the podcasts about distribution. There are books, there are magazines, there are other podcasts and interviews, and so you can do a lot of the homework on your own that doesn't cost anything. And then, as you progress and as you get closer to, making your film, you're going to be so much better armed to handle it. And then, then it's about, finding good partners who have more knowledge than you, who can, help fill in your blind spots. And so, you get a team together, and then hopefully at some point you can find a producer's rep or a consultant that will help you navigate, the kind of treacherous world of distribution. But it's all about, just kind of building these baby steps and putting the puzzle pieces together, building your team, building your knowledge, so that when you are ready to make this film and you finally get your money, together to make it, you actually know what you're doing, you know what the market will bear, and you can make something that gives you a chance to return the money to your investors, or maybe it's your own money, and do another film.
Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Here is a complimentary question from our book Story Questions.